Is a story that might offer some hope amidst all the gloom around us, because US clinical trials of a drug called Remdesivir is showing positive results in curing novel coronavirus. A study by the US National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases shows that patients taking these drugs are recovering at a faster rate than those who don't take any drugs. But is Remdesivir really a magic cure? Or are the results at the moment still inconclusive? Could this be the light at the end of a dark tunnel? It's our top story tonight.
"35 companies and institutions from across the world are racing against time to find the right drug that can halt the spread of COVID-19. One of them is Gilead Sciences, a biopharma company in the United States, whose trials with the drug Remdesivir is raising hopes. The phase 3 clinical trial of Remdesivir, led by a team of investigators, including an Indian-American physician, has shown positive results. The phase 3 clinical trial is considered the final step in the process of drug approval.
It's a big thing what happened just recently, where they came up with something that has a very substantial percentage. You know, it's a building block. That means it's a very substantial chunk of a step, and that's a building block to the ultimate step.
Remdesivir is a proven SARS and MERS drug and is known to limit the ability of virus to multiply. 50% of the COVID-19 patients treated with a 5-day dosage of Remdesivir improved. More than half of the severely ill patients were discharged from hospital within 2 weeks. Preliminary results have shown that patients who were given Remdesivir showed a 31% faster recovery rate. The world has been closely following Gilead's trials with Remdesivir, and its early reports have raised a lot of interest.
Data shows that Remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect. Although a 31% improvement doesn't seem like a knockout 100%, it is a very important proof of concept, because what it is proven is that a drug can block this virus.
This is not the miracle drug that's going to stop this pandemic, right? For that, we probably need a vaccine. But I think it really has potential to hopefully, if it can be used on a big scale, to prevent a lot of people from developing more severe disease, and then hopefully also to prevent death.
The COVID patients who were given the drug recovered in 11 days as compared to 15 days for those given a placebo.
And when I get into the second and third days, I already feel better. I mean, I don't stop coughing or anything, but I can feel that I'm feeling better. My oxygen level, it's okay.
India too has been watching with interest the trials at the University of Chicago laboratory.
If you are talking about Remdesivir, so it is also one of the studies which have got published, which also was done by United States National Institute of Allergic and Infectious Diseases. There also the study did not conclusively prove, as of now, that yes, it is going to be 100% helpful. However, we are waiting for larger evidence to be generated for us to take a meaningful action at the field level.
With the United States facing a huge test in controlling the coronavirus pandemic, the FDA is now set to authorize the emergency use of Remdesivir. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me now from Stanford in United States, a very special guest. I'm joined by Dr. Aruna Subramaniam, MD, Clinical Professor of Medicine, Chief Immunocompromised Host Infectious Diseases at Stanford University. And she is one of the lead investigators of the study into Remdesivir. Thank you very much, Aruna, for joining me there from Stanford. Dr. Rajesh Parekh, Director Medical Research at Jaslok Hospital Research Center, also joining me. But I want to come to Dr. Subramaniam, because there's a lot of interest in what has happened in the United States yesterday. Give us a sense here in India. This 3-phase trial, when Gilead, the company, says has shown positive results, what exactly are those positive results? How would you describe them purely in medical terms for the average person?
Yeah, we're quite optimistic by the results. I think it's an improvement in clinical outcomes. So people are getting better enough to get discharged. They're coming off oxygen and able to get discharged. We had about 60% of patients where when they got the drug, you could see this clinical improvement, which is huge in this very deadly disease. When you can see people getting better in front of your eyes and able to go home, I think that's very clinically relevant.
Is it though, Dr. Subramaniam, that they're getting better in terms of a cure, or is it that they simply seem to recover faster than those given a placebo? Preliminary results apparently showing they recovered 31% faster than those who are given a placebo. Is it a cure, or is it simply something that is going to provide some kind of relief to a patient suffering from corona?
This is a treatment. Whether it's how fast somebody recovers is very clinically important, right? If somebody has to stay in the hospital for weeks and weeks on a ventilator compared to another person who's able to recover faster and go home, it's better for the patient. You also use much less hospital resources. So it's a bit of semantics, what you call it, but any positive treatment where you can get the patient feeling better is very important for the patient and for society in order to get people home and well.
You know, the reason I'm being, a little skeptical, or the world is still being skeptical, Dr. Subramaniam, is an earlier clinical trial conducted in China with remdesivir did not prove to be so successful. So trial of the same drug in China, as reported by Lancet, showed it was ineffective. So are we saying that the jury is still out, or do you believe that there is sufficient reason to believe that this could well be some kind of a major step forward?
That trial was very much under-enrolled. They had planned to enroll 450 patients, but they actually got the whole pandemic under control there. So they actually couldn't enroll in that trial. So that trial originally had an 80% power to predict the difference between both arms. What they actually had was a 58% power to predict a difference, which is nobody would purposely design a study with such low power. So it's very hard to make any conclusions from that study. I think when you put all the data together, we've had thousands of patients in the US in these studies treated with remdesivir, and we see it with our own eyes that they're getting better. So I think it's hopeful. I agree that there's more work to be done. We need to do a deep dive into the data, really understand whom should we target, how long should we treat, and what are the risk factors in these patients to really get worse. But I don't think that, I think it's a very positive step.
So what's the next step? You're saying that these, you've gone through this phase 3 clinical trial of the antiviral drug remdesivir. What happens next? Do you sort of scale it up? Does it go into mass production? Do you now just increase the number of patients who will be, in a way, part of these trial exercises, or does it go beyond trials now?
Now it may go beyond trials. They've already increased the number of patients who have access to this medication. But I think as I said, what we need to do is really refine the treatment, whether it's going to be remdesivir alone, at what point. The earlier you treat, people who got drug within the first 10 days really did better and had much better outcomes than those who got the drug later, beyond 10 days of symptoms. So really that timing of treatment, whom to treat, how aggressive to be, is all still to be worked out. And then whether other drugs in addition, other modalities in addition, really reducing the immune response and other damaging effects of the virus, in addition to the antivirals, will need to be studied. And then, of course, there are plans for monoclonal antibodies against the virus, and there are plans for vaccines. All of these are very important tools in our this is the first thing in our toolkit now.
This first thing in your toolkit, is this are you doing it on patients with mild symptoms at an early stage, or is it going to patients who are really critically ill?
The data that came out yesterday was more in severe patients. They were all critically ill. They were on oxygen with infiltrates. They had pneumonia and they were in the hospital quite sick. Those were severe patients. We also have another trial where the data is yet to be released on moderate patients. Those are patients who did have a pneumonia but didn't require oxygen. And those patients got 5 days of remdesivir versus 10 versus standard of care, supportive care. So that data is yet to be released. The NIAID, the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Disease study, was all comers who were in the hospital with infection rates. So some of them were on ventilators and some were milder. So that did take all comers in the hospital and versus placebo.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, hold on for a minute, Dr. Subramaniam, because I want to bring a perspective from here in India. Dr. Parikh, when this story broke late last night, you SMS'd me saying that you thought that this could be a major step forward. What does it mean for India, a country where we are seeing the number of cases steadily rising? Do you see this as some kind of a, at least temporary, immediate solution, possibly?
Well, Rajdeep, as usual, you've chosen your words judiciously. You started by you began by saying there's some hope in the gloom, and I thought I heard the emphasis on the word some. You brought up the question of whether it was conclusive, and then, of course, you talked about the skepticism. I think between them, they pretty much summarize the current state. You also appropriately juxtaposed two studies, the one that was published in the Lancet the other day, and this one. There are very critical differences between the two studies. One of them, Dr. Subramaniam alluded to, which is the numbers. You know, one has 263, the others has 1,063. Before we move further, but why does the Chinese study have 253 instead of the 454 that they intended? That's important. They couldn't find the patients. Whatever they've done is so effective that they're finding it nearly impossible to recruit patients into studies. And this situation has been there for the past couple of weeks. Why are we talking about this particular drug? You know, currently, as we speak, there are 254 different drugs in various stages of trial and about 95 vaccines. But let's talk about the drugs. Why are we talking about one particular drug? Well, drug development is a marathon. It goes through various phases. We need to get into that. Why is remdesivir the focus of attention? Very simply, because it was the first off the block. It got off the block several years ago because it was being tested for Ebola, African Ebola virus. So it got through the preclinical stage, it got through the safety, it got through phase 2, and in phase 3, it was ineffective. It didn't work against Ebola, so that's why it was never produced or marketed. But what it did show in vitro, and that's also seen in the coronavirus, which is slightly different from the Marburg virus variant which was seen in Ebola, it shows a very important thing, and that's why I'm so excited. It shows that a critical step in viral replication, which involves an enzyme called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, this enzyme, which is vital for the virus to replicate, gets blocked, at least in the laboratory. So there is a concept which is encouraging. But coming to these two studies, well, one study had 1,063, the other had 253, admittedly a big difference. On the other hand, the second study was published in a peer-reviewed journal. The first, in what is truly an unusual step, I mean, it's very, very rare, was announced to the public before peer review, before publication. I understand the expediency involved. There is a further issue we needn't get into, but I'll just touch upon it. Dr. Fauci is the head of the institute, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which conducted the study. Not questioning his credentials, which have been well established. It's very unusual for the head of the institute to be in public talking about study results, which are kind of tentative. Mind you, what we are seeing is in these patients, half the patients get a placebo, half the patients get remdesivir. The remdesivir patients are getting better in 11 days, and the placebo patients who are getting no medication at all are taking 15 days. Surprisingly, mortality, how many patients survive, was not an endpoint in this research. There is no significance in survival. And survival is a very important endpoint in today's times. So I think your words were wise. Mr. Agarwal, our Joint Secretary of Health, also spoke appropriately when he said that we need far more evidence. These are troubled times.
Let me therefore take that.
It's important.
You're saying this is a first tentative step. Let me take that to Dr. Subramaniam. The issue of mortality you know, is it actually saving lives, or is it simply giving people some kind of a relief at the moment that instead of a 15-day process, that process gets shortened possibly to 5 days or 10 to 11 days?
Right. The mortality that was seen in the NIH study, the NIAID study, was 8% versus 11.6%. That is a trend toward improvement, but as you've pointed out, it's not a magic bullet. But I think that, as I said before, I think these are very clinically relevant endpoints. Mm-hmm. Coming off a ventilator, coming down on your oxygen, being able to be discharged are all very important endpoints. We are very worried about overuse of hospital resources, people staying in the hospital for weeks and weeks, and anything that can cut those down are very, very helpful. And I think, as I said before, we will see more when we look at earlier treatment. That's where we really need to dig into the data further. It's true, we haven't, these are unusual times, and we haven't really done the deep dive into the data. This is all preliminary. So we need to dig into the data and see if you treat earlier, will you actually have an impact on mortality, which I think will be very exciting to see if we do.
So how long do you see that process, Dr. Subramaniam? Do you believe that, let's say, a month from now, we would possibly have more news? Because there's been all this talk that by June, July, we will have at least a drug in place. A vaccine will, of course, take much longer, but we could actually have a drug in place by June, July.
Yes, I think even sooner we'll have the data analyzed further, and we'll follow people out for more time, at least 1 month after enrolling in all these trials, and we'll have more long-term data and mortality data for sure.
Well, that's very, very encouraging to know that in a month from now at least, or within a month from now, we will have much more data. Can remdesivir be at least possibly a drug that can at least bring down the period within which a patient needs to recover from coronavirus? I appreciate Dr. Parekh and Dr. Subramaniam giving us a sense on the big story that's been breaking across the world at the moment. Remember, Gilead stocks have, of course, gone through the roof. Dr. Subramaniam, thank you very much for joining us there live from Stanford, and Dr. Parekh here in Mumbai.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.